What happens when a beloved morning show host decides he's had enough of royal excuses and calls out a Prince Lev on national television? Well, you're about to find out, because what went down between Michael Strahan and Prince Harry on Good Morning America was absolutely explosive. Before we dive into this incredible confrontation, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered Michael's brutal takedown of the Duke of Sussex. The tension was palpable from the moment Prince Harry walked onto the Good Morning America set. Michael Strahan, usually the epitome of charm and professionalism, had a different energy about him that morning. His smile seemed forced, his posture more rigid than usual. The interview was supposed to be a softball promotion for Harry's latest charitable endeavor, but something in Michael's demeanor suggested this wasn't going to go according to plan. "Prince Harry, welcome back to Good Morning America," Michael began, his voice carrying an undertone that seasoned viewers would recognize as restrained irritation. "It's always interesting having you here, Harry." Settling into his chair with that familiar casual confidence seemed oblivious to the shift in atmosphere. "Thank you for having me, Michael. Always a pleasure to be here with you and the team." "Right," Michael replied, shuffling his papers with perhaps more force than necessary. "Let's talk about your new initiative, another foundation, another cause, another opportunity for you to tell us how you're changing the world from your mansion in Montecito." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Harry's smile faltered slightly, his eyes narrowing as he processed what he'd just heard. "I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand the tone of your question, Michael." "Oh, the tone." Michael leaned back in his chair, his professional mask beginning to slip. "Well, Harry, maybe it's because this is what the 15th interview you've done in the past 6 months about various causes and foundations and initiatives. And yet, here we are again listening to you tell America how committed you are to making a difference, while you simultaneously tear down the very institution that gave you the platform to make that difference in the first place." The studio fell silent except for the hum of cameras. Harry straightened in his seat, his jaw tightening. "Michael, I think you're mischaracterizing my work and my motivations. Everything I do is about creating positive change and helping people who need it most." "Creating positive change," Michael repeated, his voice dripping with skepticism. "By writing tell-all books about your family? By doing interviews where you accuse them of racism? By airing your private grievances on Netflix for millions of dollars? That's your idea of positive change?" "Those were necessary steps to tell my truth and protect my family," Harry shot back, his composure beginning to crack. "I won't apologize for standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult." "Your truth," Michael said, emphasizing each word, "your truth. See, that's interesting, Harry, because the truth, the actual truth, is that you've built an entire career in America off of trashing the people who raised you, who gave you every opportunity in life, who loved you despite your mistakes. And now you want to sit here and lecture us about service and commitment." The color was rising in Harry's cheeks now. "You don't know what you're talking about, Michael. You don't know what it was like growing up in that environment. The pressures, the expectations, the complete lack of support when I needed it most." The lack of support. Michael's voice was rising now, his famous composure completely abandoned. "Harry, you had every door open for you from the day you were born. You had the best education money could buy, military training, public support, and a family that covered for your mistakes time and time again. And your response to all of that privilege was to run away the moment things got challenging, and then spend years publicly humiliating the people who gave you everything." "That is not what happened," Harry snapped, leaning forward in his chair. "You're oversimplifying a complex situation that you couldn't possibly understand." Complex," Michael laughed. "But there was no humor in it. Let me simplify it for you. Then you married a woman, which was wonderful. Your family welcomed her, which they did. But when she didn't like the rules and expectations that come with being part of the royal family, instead of working within the system or quietly stepping back, you both decided to blow everything up publicly and then cash in on the drama." "Not complex, Harry. That's just selfish." The words hit Harry like physical blows. His hands gripped the arms of his chair, and for a moment, it looked like he might stand up and walk off the set. "You have no idea what my wife went through. What we both went through, the harassment, the lies in the press, The complete failure of the institution to protect us. Protect you from what exactly? Michael pressed, sensing he had Harry on the defensive, from criticism, from having to follow protocol, from having to earn respect instead of expecting it to be handed to you. Because that's what life is like for everyone else. Harry, the rest of us don't get to run to Oprah every time someone hurts our feelings. This isn't about hurt feelings, Harry said through gritted teeth. This is about systemic issues, about an institution that refuses to modernize, about protecting my family from the same forces that killed my mother. The mention of Diana seemed to energize Michael rather than soften him. Don't you dare bring your mother into this to justify your behavior. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become. She would be heartbroken to see how you've treated your father, your brother, your grandmother before she died. Diana stood by her family even when things were difficult. She didn't run away and write books about how terrible everyone was. Harry's face went white with rage. You did not just say that to me. You don't get to speak about my mother. You don't get to tell me what she would think. I'll speak about whatever I want, Your Royal Highness, Michael said, the title dripping with sarcasm. Because this is my show in my country, where we don't bow down to entitled princes who think their problems are more important than everyone else's. Your mother understood duty and service. You understand publicity and profit. Harry shot to his feet, his composure completely shattered. How dare you sit there and lecture me about my mother when you've never walked a day in my shoes? You want to talk about duty and service? I served my country in Afghanistan while you were throwing footballs around a field. I've dedicated my life to causes that matter, to helping veterans, to supporting mental health initiatives, to fighting for people who don't have a voice. Sit down, Michael commanded, his voice cutting through Harry's tirade like a blade. You served, yes, and that was admirable. But you also used that service as a shield for every questionable decision you've made since. And let's be honest about your charitable work, shall we? How much of the money raised by your various foundations actually goes to the causes versus funding your lifestyle? How much of your advocacy work is really about helping people versus keeping yourself relevant? And in the headlines, Harry remains standing, his fists clenched at his sides. You're questioning my charitable work now. The Invictus Games has helped thousands of wounded veterans. My mental health advocacy has saved lives. Everything I do is about service, not personal gain. The Invictus Games, Michael said, leaning back with a cold smile. Yes, let's talk about that. A wonderful program that you've now turned into your personal brand. Every photo op, every speech, every appearance centered around you and your story, instead of the actual veterans you claim to serve. You've made yourself the face of their struggles when you should be lifting them up instead. That's not true, Harry protested. But his voice lacked conviction. I use my platform to bring attention to their needs. Your platform, Michael repeated mockingly. The platform you built by betraying your family's trust and selling their secrets to the highest bidder. The platform you maintain by constantly playing the victim while living in luxury most people can't even imagine. Tell me, Harry, what exactly are you a victim of? Being born into one of the most privileged families on earth, having access to resources and opportunities that 99% of the population will never see. Having people literally bow to you when you walk into a room. You don't understand the psychological damage that comes with that kind of scrutiny and pressure. Harry shot back, his voice rising to nearly a shout. The constant invasion of privacy, the impossible expectations, the knowledge that every mistake you make will be front-page news around the world. Boo-hoo, Michael said with devastating simplicity. You know what, Harry? Everyone in the public eye deals with scrutiny. Every celebrity, every politician, every athlete faces criticism and pressure. The difference is that most of us don't have centuries of inherited wealth and power to cushion the blow. Most of us don't have taxpayer-funded security and palaces to retreat to when things get tough. I never asked for any of that, Harry said desperately. I never chose this life. No, you didn't choose it, Michael agreed. But you did choose how to respond to it. You could have chosen to honor the sacrifices made by previous generations of your family. You could have chosen to use your position to serve others quietly and with dignity the way your grandparents did for 70 years. Instead, you chose to throw it all away the moment someone told you that being royal meant following rules and meeting expectations. The system was broken. Harry insisted weakly. It needed to change, so you tried to change it by running away and attacking it from the outside. Michael's laugh was harsh and bitter. That's not reform, Harry, that's sabotage. And the saddest part is that you've convinced yourself that your petty grievances and personal disappointments constitute some kind of noble crusade for justice and modernization. Harry's hands were shaking now. Whether from rage or despair was impossible to tell. Everything I've done has been to protect my family and create a better life for my children, Michael asked quietly. And the gentleness in his voice was somehow more devastating than all his anger had been. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've condemned your children to a life of permanent exile from their heritage. You've cut them off from their grandfather, their uncle, their cousins. You've traded their royal legacy for Hollywood money and California sunshine. You've turned your son from a future working royal into just another celebrity kid growing up disconnected from his roots and his responsibilities. Maybe that's better, Harry said. But his voice was breaking. Maybe being normal is better than being trapped in that system. Is it normal to have your every childhood moment documented by Netflix cameras? Is it normal to have your father's private conversations with his family turned into best-selling books? Is it normal to grow up knowing that your parents made their fortune by publicly destroying the reputation of your extended family? Michael's questions came like hammer blows. You haven't given your children normal, Harry. You've given them a different kind of dysfunction wrapped up in California privilege and Hollywood glamour. The words seemed to hit Harry like physical blows. He doubled over slightly as if Michael's questions had actually caused him pain. I can't win with you people. If I stay, I'm trapped and miserable. If I leave, I'm selfish and destructive. There's no right choice. There was a right choice, Michael said with quiet intensity. You could have stayed and worked to make things better from the inside. You could have been patient and diplomatic instead of demanding immediate change. You could have supported your wife through her adjustment period instead of encouraging her to see every difficulty as a personal attack. You could have remembered that real change takes time, and that burning bridges makes it impossible to build anything new. Harry stared at him with the hollow eyes of a man who is beginning to understand the magnitude of what he had lost. It's too late now. I've said too much, done too much. There's no going back, and that's the real tragedy, isn't it? Michael continued relentlessly, because deep down you know that running away didn't solve anything. It just created new problems and hurt more people. But your pride won't let you admit it. Your contracts won't let you stop talking about it. And your wife won't let you consider any path that doesn't involve continued warfare against your family. That's not Harry started, then stopped, seeming to realize that any denial would sound hollow. You're trapped now in a prison of your own making. Michael pressed on. You can't reconcile with your family, because that would mean admitting you were wrong, and your entire brand is built on being the wronged party. You can't stop giving interviews and writing books, because that's how you pay for your lifestyle now. You can't move forward because you're too invested in relitigating the past. So, here you sit pretending to be free while you're actually more trapped than you ever were as a working royal. The studio was completely silent except for the hum of cameras capturing Harry's breakdown in excruciating detail. His face was pale, his hands trembling, and for a moment it seemed like he might collapse, entirely under the weight of Michael's psychological assault. I was trying to do the right thing, Harry whispered, his voice barely audible. I thought I was protecting the people I love. No, Michael said with finality. You were protecting your own ego. You were choosing the easy path of blame and resentment over the hard work of forgiveness and compromise. You were selecting short-term satisfaction over long-term relationships. And now you're sitting here thousands of miles from everyone who really knew you, surrounded by people who profit from your pain, trying to convince America that your self-imposed exile is actually freedom. Harry stood up abruptly, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. He began fumbling with his microphone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely manage the simple task of removing it. This interview is over, he managed to say, though his voice cracked on the words. Yes, it is, Michael agreed, watching with clinical detachment as Harry struggled with the wire. Just like everything else in your life that gets difficult or uncomfortable, you run away, Harry froze his hand on the microphone cable, and for a moment, it seemed like he might turn around and launch one final desperate defense of his choices. But instead he just dropped the microphone on his chair with a dull thud and began walking toward the exit. His shoulders hunched and his head down like a man in defeat. "Harry," Michael called after him, causing the prince to pause at the edge of the set without turning around. "Your mother would have found a way to make peace. She would have found a way to bring people together instead of tearing them apart. That was her gift. It's a shame you didn't inherit it." The words hit their target with devastating precision. Harry's shoulders shook once as if he'd been struck. And then he continued his walk off the set without looking back, disappearing into the darkness beyond the stage lights. Michael turned back to face the camera directly, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and genuine sadness. "And there you have it," he said to the lens, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "The real Prince Harry, not the victim he pretends to be on talk shows, not the humanitarian he claims to be in press releases, not the loving father and husband he presents in carefully staged photos. Just a man who had everything handed to him and chose to throw it away, rather than do the hard work of growing up and taking responsibility for his choices." He paused, letting the silence emphasize the magnitude of what had just occurred. "No, I came into this interview planning to give him softball questions about his latest charity work. I was prepared to be polite, professional, maybe even sympathetic. But watching him sit there, still playing the victim after all these years, still blaming everyone else for the consequences of his own decisions, I realized that sometimes kindness isn't kind. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is tell them the truth about themselves, even if they can't handle hearing it." The camera held on Michael's face as he delivered his final assessment with the gravity of a judge pronouncing sentence. Prince Harry came to America looking for freedom, but all he found was a different kind of prison. And until he's ready to admit that the key to that prison is in his own hands, he's going to keep sitting in interviews like this one, wondering why nothing he does ever makes him happy. So, what do you think? Was Michael Strahan justified in his brutal psychological takedown of Prince Harry? Or did he cross a line that morning show hosts should never cross? Did Harry deserve this public humiliation, or was Michael's attack too personal and cruel? Let me know in the comments below.